Have you ever felt like your day just runs away from you? Like no matter what you do, time slips through your fingers? What if I told you that the first hour of your day holds the secret to transforming your entire life? It's not about motivation. It's about ownership. Imagine standing in front of the mirror every morning, making a promise to yourself. What would that promise do for your future? Stick around to find out. If you don't run your day will run you. That simple truth has been a game changer for thousands of lives, and it all starts the moment you wake up. What you do in that first hour of the day doesn't just set the tone for the next hour, it shapes the next 23 hours. Most people don't fail because they lack talent or skills. They fail because they begin their day with no clear direction. Laziness doesn't take over in one dramatic moment. It doesn't storm in like a tidal wave. Instead, it sneaks in little by little during those early moments when you delay, when you scroll aimlessly, when you tell yourself, "I'll start later." If that's been your habit, you already know where it leads. Nowhere. But in this video, you're going to learn exactly what to do every morning to kill that lazy version of yourself before it even has the chance to wake up. This isn't about some random advice. These are proven, simple shifts that you can start implementing tomorrow. You'll hear exactly how to set your mind right, how to take action when it counts the most, and how to build a pattern of self-respect, step by step. If you're serious about getting your life together, it starts with owning your mornings. Watch closely. Apply what you hear, because this is how you take back control. The first step is powerful. Look in the mirror and speak one strong promise to yourself. Every morning, you have a choice. You can either drift through the day as though it doesn't matter, or you can take charge the moment you open your eyes. And one of the most powerful ways to take control, to break free from laziness before it even has a chance to speak, is by looking in the mirror and making a solid promise to yourself. Not quietly in your head, not a whisper, but out loud. You stand there in front of your reflection and you say it like it counts. Because it does. This isn't about being fancy. It's not about giving yourself a pep talk. This is about rebuilding your relationship with yourself. Because, and here's the secret, that's where laziness hides, in the cracks of a weak self-image. If you've been putting things off, skipping responsibilities, ignoring your better judgment, it builds up. It turns into a pattern, and eventually you start accepting a watered-down version of yourself. You start settling. You stop expecting more from yourself. That's when laziness takes over. And the worst part? You get used to it. But there's something incredibly powerful about standing still in front of that mirror early in the day when no one's watching. There's no noise, no distractions, just you, your reflection, and a choice. A chance to say, "This is who I am today. This is what I'm going to stand for, and this is what I'm going to stop allowing." That moment, it resets your mind. It realigns your actions. You're not just hoping to be productive, you're deciding it. You're telling yourself the truth before the world starts telling you lies. You know the drill. People spend so much time lying to themselves. They say, "tomorrow," but they mean never. They say, "I'm too tired," before they've even tried. They say, "I'll get to it," even when deep down they know they won't. This kind of self-deception chips away at your own respect. You stop trusting your own words. You stop believing your own thoughts. And the more it happens, the easier it becomes to live lazily, not because you're weak, but because you stopped holding yourself to anything real. That's why this promise needs to be spoken out loud. And it has to be honest. You don't need to impress yourself. You just need to tell yourself the truth. You've got more in you than you've been showing. You've been allowing too much delay. And today, you're not going to fall back into the same cycle. You're going to break it, one action at a time. You promise yourself that you're not going to waste the day. Now that you've made that powerful promise, it's time to take the next step. The real key to success lies not just in making promises, but in setting a standard for yourself before the world gets a chance to interfere. How do you do that? Let's explore how you can set that standard first thing in the morning and make sure you stay in control all day long. Now that you've made your morning promise and are beginning to feel its power, what's next? How do you maintain this momentum and avoid being pulled off course by the world around you? The answer is simple. Set a strong standard before the world has a chance to interrupt. You've promised that you will move even when it's uncomfortable. You've promised that laziness will no longer have a place in your decisions. And don't underestimate the power of doing this consistently. One day doesn't change your life, but one day becomes two. 2 days become a week. A week becomes a lifestyle. And suddenly you've got momentum. You start showing up differently. You start getting things done without needing a push. You no longer wait to feel ready. You don't need motivation to work. You just work because it's who you've trained yourself to be. That morning promise isn't about hype. It's about ownership. It's about drawing a line and saying, from now on, I will take myself seriously. And when you say it with intention, your mind listens. It remembers. And when that moment of weakness shows up later in the day, and it will, you remember what you said. That voice comes back and reminds you, no, we're not doing this anymore. We made a promise. The truth is, most people won't do this. They'll keep rolling out of bed, checking their phones, and falling into the same lazy pattern they say they want to change. They'll keep making excuses, and a year from now, they'll still be stuck in the same place, wondering why things haven't improved. But not you. You're not waiting for a perfect plan. You're starting with what you've got. And what you've got is the ability to decide right now that you're done with being lazy. If you want to build something great with your life, you don't need a huge breakthrough. You just need to start keeping promises to yourself. That's where confidence comes from. That's how discipline grows. And that's how laziness dies slowly, consistently, one decision at a time. So tomorrow when you wake up, don't reach for distractions. Don't look away from the truth. Walk straight to the mirror. Stand tall and say the words you need to hear. Not for the world, but for you. Say the promise that reminds you who you are. Say it like it matters, and then go out and prove it. This is how you take back control of your life. One morning, one promise, one strong decision at a time. When the algorithm on YouTube pushes this kind of message, it's because people are desperate for truth. They're tired of fake motivation. They want something that makes them feel something real. This isn't about yelling. It's not about hype. It's about responsibility. It's about giving people the practical mindset they need to start becoming someone they respect. People love this type of video because it doesn't talk down to them. It talks to them. It doesn't say you'll feel great every day. It says, some days will be hard, but you're still responsible. That's what creates engagement. That's what makes them watch to the end, because it's not entertainment. It's elevation. And if someone watches this and actually follows through, if they go to the mirror tomorrow morning and speak a real promise to themselves, they'll feel something shift. Not just in their thoughts, but in their behavior. That's how you earn back your power. That's how you destroy laziness at the root. No shortcuts, no tricks, just the courage to face yourself and say, I'm not wasting another day, and then doing exactly that. Now that you've committed to that powerful promise, it's time to set a standard for yourself before the world has a chance to interrupt. The moment you open your eyes in the morning, you're either leading your life or letting life lead you. You've already learned how to take back control of your morning and set a solid standard for yourself. But to maintain this stability throughout the day, the key is to keep that standard intact before the world has a chance to interfere. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do to destroy laziness and step into personal power is to set a standard before anything outside of you gets a chance to speak. Before the phone buzzes, before the noise begins, before someone else's priorities find their way into your space, you set the tone. That's where personal freedom lives. Not in having more time or more motivation, but in having more control over how your day starts. It's not about being busy. It's about being grounded in what matters to you before everything else tries to tell you what should matter. See, most people don't start the day with intention. They start with reaction. The alarm rings. They hit snooze. They scroll. They check what's trending. And just like that, their mind is hijacked before they've even stood up. The direction of the day is gone. The standard is forgotten, and now they're chasing the clock, wondering where their energy went. But if you build the habit of waking up and deciding who you're going to be instead of waiting to be told what to do, you give yourself the advantage most people never even think about. Setting a standard doesn't mean you need a long list of goals. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It means you wake up and say, "This is the kind of person I'm choosing to be today." And you say it to yourself with clarity. You say, "Today, I don't lower my focus. I don't entertain weakness. I don't let old habits decide how I move." That simple internal declaration becomes your armor against distractions. It gives your actions purpose. It strengthens your decisions when things start pulling at you. You know what happens when you don't do this? You fall into the trap of the average day. The lazy mindset creeps in because there's no direction. You tell yourself you'll get to it later. You wait for the perfect time and nothing gets done. Not because you weren't capable, but because you didn't prepare yourself early. It's the preparation that gives you strength. That's what this practice is about. It's mental conditioning. And the earlier you do it in the day, the more powerful the effect. You don't need to announce it to the world. You don't need to post about it. You just need to decide it quietly and live it boldly. And that's what makes it real. When you set a standard in the morning and you actually live by it, you start becoming a different kind of person. You begin to move with calm direction. You stop rushing. You stop doubting yourself because you know how your day started. It started with leadership, your own. This kind of discipline isn't common. That's why it stands out. The people who build real momentum in life aren't the ones who always feel good. They're the ones who are clear about what they won't allow. They're not confused about what matters. And when pressure hits them during the day, they don't fall apart because they already built a mental standard when things were quiet. That's the trick. You build your strength in the quiet so you can hold it in the chaos. And here's something people often overlook. When you start the day with your standard, not only does it shape your actions, it influences how people treat you. Others start to sense it. They notice how you carry yourself, how you don't waste time, how you're focused, not frantic. That energy changes your opportunities. It changes how you respond to challenges. And more importantly, it changes how you see yourself. Every single day, the world is ready to interrupt you. Now that you've set your standard and decided to take control of your morning, the next step is to protect that decision and hold on to it throughout the day. But how do you maintain your strength when everything around you is trying to pull you off track? Let's dive into the next steps to make sure you stay strong all day long. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do to destroy laziness and step into personal power is to set a standard before anything outside of you gets a chance to speak. Before the phone buzzes, before the noise begins, before someone else's priorities find their way into your space, you set the tone. That's where personal freedom lives. Not in having more time or more motivation, but in having more control over how your day starts. It's not about being busy. It's about being grounded in what matters to you before everything else tries to tell you what should matter. See, most people don't start the day with intention. They start with reaction. The alarm rings. They hit snooze. They scroll. They check what's trending. And just like that, their mind is hijacked before they've even stood up. The direction of the day is gone. The standard is forgotten. And now they're chasing the clock, wondering where their energy went. But if you build the habit of waking up and deciding who you're going to be instead of waiting to be told what to do, you give yourself the advantage most people never even think about. Setting a standard doesn't mean you need a long list of goals. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It means you wake up and say, "This is the kind of person I'm choosing to be today." And you say it to yourself with clarity. You say, "Today, I don't lower my focus. I don't entertain weakness. I don't let old habits decide how I move." That simple internal declaration becomes your armor against distractions. It gives your actions purpose. It strengthens your decisions when things start pulling at you. You know what happens when you don't do this? You fall into the trap of the average day. The lazy mindset creeps in because there's no direction. You tell yourself you'll get to it later. You wait for the perfect time and nothing gets done. Not because you weren't capable, but because you didn't prepare yourself early. It's the preparation that gives you strength. That's what this practice is about. It's mental conditioning. And the earlier you do it in the day, the more powerful the effect. You don't need to announce it to the world. You don't need to post about it. You just need to decide it quietly and live it boldly. And that's what makes it real. When you set a standard in the morning and you actually live by it, you start becoming a different kind of person. You begin to move with calm direction. You stop rushing. You stop doubting yourself because you know how your day started. It started with leadership, your own. This kind of discipline isn't common. That's why it stands out. The people who build real momentum in life aren't the ones who always feel good. They're the ones who are clear about what they won't allow. They're not confused about what matters. And when pressure hits them during the day, they don't fall apart because they already built a mental standard when things were quiet. That's the trick. You build your strength in the quiet so you can hold it in the chaos. And here's something people often overlook. When you start the day with your standard, not only does it shape your actions, it influences how people treat you. Others start to sense it. They notice how you carry yourself, how you don't waste time, how you're focused, not frantic. That energy changes your opportunities. It changes how you respond to challenges. And more importantly, it changes how you see yourself. Every single day, the world is ready to interrupt you. So, what's next? How do you actually sustain this strength throughout your day? As mentioned earlier, keeping your first promise in. The morning isn't just about making a simple decision. It's the crucial first step in rebuilding trust with yourself. So, how do you maintain that strength throughout the day and keep the momentum going? But it doesn't have to stay that way. You can reverse the pattern. And it starts by taking that first promise you make each morning and treating it like a contract, like a non-negotiable. You say you're going to do something, then you do it, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's early, even if it's not perfect. That's how you rebuild trust with yourself. That's how you rewire your mindset from lazy and reactive to focused and intentional. And this isn't about being extreme. It's not about pushing yourself to burnout. It's about doing exactly what you said you would do. Even if it's just drinking a full glass of water first thing, even if it's making your bed, reading one page, or writing one thought down, whatever it is, it needs to be completed. Not because it's the most important task, but because it's the first one. And when you complete the first one, you've already started the day with a win. You've already proven to yourself that you keep your word. And that's what builds real confidence. See, confidence doesn't come from compliments. It doesn't come from hype. It comes from consistency, from following through when no one else is watching, from keeping those quiet promises that stack up over time and form a strong foundation. That's what lazy people never learn. They think confidence is something you feel. It's not. It's something you earn. And you earn it by doing what you said you would do, especially when it's not convenient. There's something about that first promise of the day. If you break it, the rest of your day gets easier to skip through. You already failed yourself once, so what's one more? But if you keep it, even something small, it changes your posture. It shifts how you walk into the next task. It becomes a ripple effect, and that ripple can carry you through a full day of momentum. But the catch is, it only works if you treat it like it matters. And here's where most people go wrong. They think no one notices. They think it's just between me and me. But that's exactly why it matters most. Because if you lose respect for your own word, nothing else will stick. Not the schedules, not the routines, not the motivation videos or books or coaches. Because all of that depends on whether or not you actually listen to yourself when you speak. Now, this is where it connects with what people crave on YouTube. They don't want another step-by-step formula. They want real advice that makes them look at themselves and say, "He's right. I've been skipping the basics." And this is one of those basics, one of the most overlooked, underappreciated, but powerful strategies for personal growth, that first promise. Because once someone realizes they've been ignoring it, once they start keeping it, even once, their entire day starts to change. Their energy shifts, their focus sharpens, and their sense of control returns. You want to be someone who destroys laziness? Then stop chasing hacks and shortcuts. Start with your word, your own word to yourself. Wake up. Decide one thing that matters, say it out loud, and do it without excuse. That's it. Simple but not easy. And that's why it works. Because the person who can honor their first commitment of the day can handle much more than they think. They become dependable, not just to others, but to themselves. And when that happens, laziness doesn't stand a chance. This is the kind of message that keeps people watching until the end because it's real, it's relatable, and it doesn't try to sell fantasy. It offers something they can apply immediately, and that's what YouTube favors. Once you've kept that first promise and started building a strong foundation of self-confidence, the next step is maintaining it throughout the day. How can you ensure you stay on track and not lose your way when faced with challenges? Let's explore how you can sustain this momentum and keep the momentum going, no matter the obstacles. Now that you've learned how to honor your first promise and build a strong foundation, the next step is to ensure you stay on track throughout the day. But how do you keep this momentum going and not let distractions take over? Let's dive into the next steps to stay focused, no matter what challenges come your way. Content that hits hard, connects fast, and sticks deep. Because when the message sticks, people don't just like the video, they live it. And that's what changes everything. So tomorrow morning, don't just talk about what you're going to do. Pick one thing, make a promise, and finish it. No matter how small, that's where it all begins. That's how you honor yourself. That's how you kill laziness, by keeping the word you gave to yourself when no one else was listening. Number 4, use silence to strengthen your mind. Silence is one of the most underrated tools you have, and yet it's free. It's available every morning. No equipment needed, no subscription, no guidebook, no app, just a few minutes where you do nothing except listen to yourself. But here's the problem. Most people can't sit in silence. They don't even try. The moment they wake up, it's noise. Their phone, their feed, their schedule, their to-do list, it all floods in before they've even taken a full breath. That's why they're overwhelmed. That's why they're reactive. That's why laziness creeps in, because they don't own the first few minutes of their day. They've handed it over to the outside world. Silence in the morning isn't about being spiritual or mysterious. It's about building a strong mind before the world tries to break it. It's about sitting with yourself and becoming aware of your thoughts before they become habits, before they become decisions, before they start shaping your entire day without your permission. Most people don't even know what they think anymore, because they've spent years drowning in other people's noise. What other people say, what other people want, what other people think is important, and they wonder why they feel off, why they can't focus, why they feel behind. It's because their inner voice is silent, and not the kind of silence that helps, but the kind that's been buried under distractions for so long, it doesn't speak up anymore. You want to destroy laziness? You want to build discipline? Start by cutting the noise and choosing silence. First thing in the morning, sit quietly for just a few minutes. No music, no notifications, just you and your thoughts. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You might feel bored, agitated, even tempted to quit. That's a good sign. It means you've gotten too used to being distracted. And when you break that dependency, you start waking up mentally. You begin to realize where your focus has been going. You start to notice how fast your mind jumps from one thing to another. That awareness is everything, because the more you become aware of your own thoughts, the less likely you are to be controlled by them. And that's what people on YouTube crave right now. Real clarity. Not another motivational speech, not another hype video. They want real advice that makes them feel something inside. They want to be pulled out of the mental chaos they've been living in. And silence does that better than anything else. Because in the quiet, your real thoughts show up, not the ones you've borrowed from others, not the ones you've heard repeated 100 times online. Your own thoughts, the ones that actually matter, the ones you've been avoiding. You can't solve your problems if you're constantly running from them. And most of the time, that running happens through distraction. But when you sit still, even for 5 minutes, you're forced to see where you really are, what you've been ignoring, what you've been putting off, what kind of person you've been becoming day after day. Now that you've learned the power of silence and how it sharpens your focus, how do you maintain this clarity throughout the chaos of the day? What's the next step to ensure you stay mentally strong and focused? Let's explore how you can carry this momentum forward and take control no matter what life throws at you. Now that you've learned how to honor your first promise and build a strong foundation, the next step is to ensure you maintain that strength throughout the day. But how do you stay on track and keep the momentum going? Let's dive into the next steps to ensure you stay focused, no matter the challenges ahead. That level of honesty, that's what transforms you. That's where laziness starts to lose its grip because you're no longer hiding behind activity. You're looking directly at the truth. And the crazy thing is, it doesn't take long. Just a few quiet moments in the morning every single day. That builds emotional control, that builds mental sharpness, that builds self-respect. Because most people are afraid of silence, they can't face themselves without the noise. But the ones who can sit in silence, who can reflect, who can focus without stimulation, those are the ones who stay calm when the chaos comes. They're not reactive. They're intentional. They don't chase energy from the outside. They create it from the inside. That's why silence is a weapon. It's how you train your mind to listen before it speaks, to observe before it reacts, to think before it decides. And if you build that habit first thing in the morning, you'll start noticing something powerful. You won't get pulled into distractions as easily. You won't feel overwhelmed by simple tasks. You won't waste hours procrastinating because your mind has already been trained to slow down, to center itself, to work from a place of control, not chaos. And here's what YouTube favors in the algorithm. Watch time, retention, depth. When people feel calm and connected, they don't skip. They stay, they listen, they feel something real. That's why this message connects, because it cuts through the surface-level advice and speaks to the real issue, your mental environment. Most people never clean up their internal world. They're busy all the time, but completely scattered. They move fast, but go nowhere. And that creates a lifestyle of constant burnout and zero progress. But silence that changes the game, because it forces alignment. It creates space for real answers to show up. And once you get comfortable with that space, you'll never want to go back to noise-first living again. You'll crave that quiet moment in the morning. Not because it's peaceful, but because it gives you power. The power to choose how you think, how you feel, how you act. And that's the kind of power that laziness can't compete with. So tomorrow when you wake up, don't jump into the noise. Don't reach for your phone. Don't try to fill the moment with music or talking. Sit, breathe, think, reflect. Use that silence to anchor yourself. Use that silence to build a sharper mind. And when the day starts coming at you, and it will, you won't fold. You'll face it with control because you didn't start the day weak. You started it with strength, with stillness, with clarity. And that's how you stay one step ahead of laziness every single time. Number 5, clean one small thing with intention. When you're trying to get your life in order, you don't always need a giant breakthrough. Sometimes the best way to start building discipline and breaking out of laziness is by doing something that looks small on the surface, but carries real weight underneath. One of the simplest yet most powerful things you can do each morning is to clean one small thing with full intention. Not as a chore, not as background noise, but as a deliberate act of discipline. It sounds simple, but that's exactly why it works. Because it's not about the task itself. It's about who you're becoming while you're doing it. You're not cleaning just to tidy up a space. You're cleaning to bring order back into your environment, and more importantly, into your mind. With a clean space and a centered mind, the next step is how to maintain this discipline and focus throughout the day. How can you stay grounded and in control when distractions arise? You've already learned how to honor your first promise and build a strong foundation. But how do you maintain this strength throughout the day and avoid distractions? The next crucial step is using small actions to stay on track. And this is how you make it work. You're training yourself to finish what you start. You're reminding yourself that details matter and that how you do one thing begins to affect how you do everything. That kind of awareness is the enemy of laziness. Laziness thrives in disorder. It grows in clutter, both physical and mental. But when you step in and take a few minutes to put something in order, you're not just cleaning your space, you're cleaning your mindset. Most people ignore the small things. They walk past the pile of clothes. They leave the dishes in the sink. They see the dust but tell themselves it can wait, and that habit spreads. Soon they're avoiding the emails, the workouts, the plans. It becomes normal to overlook responsibility. But if you flip that and decide, no, I'm going to take care of this now, not later, it rewires your mind. That shift done consistently makes you sharper. You start noticing more. You take pride in what you touch. And pride is a key ingredient in defeating laziness. Think about what happens when your room is a mess or your desk is full of random junk. Your thoughts don't feel clear. You're not relaxed. You feel weighed down. Even if you can't explain it, you open your laptop and already feel behind. That's no accident. Your environment influences your state of mind, and your state of mind shapes your behavior. So the act of intentionally cleaning just one thing becomes a way to reset everything else around it. You give yourself a sense of control, and that sense of control builds momentum. It doesn't have to be something major. It could be wiping down your desk. It could be organizing a drawer. It could be folding your clothes and putting them exactly where they belong. What matters most is the energy you bring to it. You do it with purpose. You do it completely. And you do it without rushing. That's how you train your brain to stop cutting corners. And in a world where most people are looking for the shortcut, being someone who finishes small tasks well sets you apart fast. And this is what people want from content on YouTube right now. Not fluff, not fantasy. They want strategies that are real, things they can apply today that make them feel stronger, not just inspired for a few minutes. Viewers stay when they feel like the video is speaking to them directly, when it makes them pause and say, that's exactly what I've been missing. Cleaning one small thing with intention might sound too basic for some, but when it's framed the right way, it clicks with people on a deep level because deep down they know their environment reflects their internal state. And cleaning something simple can shift both. When you do this daily, it becomes a part of your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who pays attention. Someone who doesn't leave things half done. Someone who respects their space, their time, their standards. That identity begins to replace the lazy one. The version of you that avoids, delays, and forgets. And that new identity doesn't just show up when you're cleaning. It starts showing up when you work, when you talk to people, when you make decisions. You move with intention, and people can feel that difference. Now, here's the deeper reason this matters. Your brain needs proof that you follow through. Motivation doesn't come from hype. It comes from seeing evidence. When you clean something small and see the result immediately, your brain says, we did that. You feel a micro win, and that win gives you the push to do more. You don't need to rely on willpower all day. You've already got proof that you can make progress. That's what builds discipline. Small, consistent, intentional actions. And if you've been struggling to stay focused, if you've been feeling lazy, If you've been watching videos hoping something will finally flip the switch for you, this might be the move you've been ignoring. Now that you understand the power of small, intentional actions, how can you maintain and optimize these habits throughout the day? How do you stay grounded and productive when bigger challenges arise? You've already learned how to honor your first promise and build a strong foundation. But how do you maintain this strength throughout the day and avoid distractions? The next crucial step is to establish simple habits that will help you stay on track and keep moving forward. It's not complicated, but it works. It works because it gives you a sense of personal power at the start of the day. You don't need motivation to start. You just need to pick something, one drawer, one corner, one item, and complete it with care. No shortcuts, no multitasking, just presence. Finish it and feel the shift. The audience on YouTube doesn't want to be entertained every second. They want value. They want something that moves them. And this kind of message moves people because it taps into something personal. It reminds them that they are in control of how they live, how they think, and how they show up, even when everything else feels overwhelming. That's the kind of content that doesn't just get watched, it gets remembered. And remembered content is what keeps people coming back. So tomorrow morning, don't scroll right away. Don't start by checking what the world wants from you. Start by choosing one thing to clean, one thing to organize, one thing to bring back to order. Do it fully. Do it intentionally, and then pay attention to how your energy changes. That's not just a clean surface. That's a signal to your brain that laziness isn't welcome here anymore. That's how you take back the day. One quiet, focused, intentional act at a time. Number 6, read one paragraph that pushes your thinking. If you're serious about destroying laziness and getting your mind in shape for the day, you've got to feed it something better than distraction. And I'm not talking about reading a whole book or trying to finish 5 chapters before breakfast. That's not the point. What I'm talking about is much simpler and more effective. One paragraph every single morning that challenges the way you think. One idea that doesn't just sound good, but makes you stop and rethink something in your life. That's the kind of discipline that sharpens your focus and builds momentum right from the start. Most people wake up and feed their brain with junk. They scroll through notifications. They check messages. They skim headlines that don't matter. They fill their head with surface-level noise before their feet even touch the ground. And then, they wonder why they can't stay focused. They wonder why they feel lazy, foggy, or behind. The problem isn't that they lack motivation. The problem is that their thinking hasn't been challenged in a long time. And when your thinking goes soft, everything else starts to fall apart. Reading one strong paragraph in the morning changes that. It gives your brain a job. It introduces a new perspective. It reminds you that you're supposed to grow, not coast. It can be from a book, an article, a quote from someone you admire. Doesn't matter where it comes from, as long as it makes you think deeper than you did yesterday. That's what pushes laziness out of the way. Because laziness starts in the mind, not the body. The body follows the mind. So if your thoughts are passive, your actions will be too. But when your thoughts get sharper, your behavior starts to rise with them. And here's the key. Don't just read it to check it off. Don't skim it just to say you did something productive. Sit with it. Let the words sink in. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? Or how does this apply to where I'm at right now? That's when the shift happens. That's when a single paragraph can hit you harder than a whole chapter. Because it's not about volume, it's about impact. One powerful sentence, if taken seriously, can shift your attitude, your choices, even your whole day. Now that you've learned how to train your mind with meaningful reading and make the most of your mornings, the next step is maintaining this momentum throughout the day. How do you stay disciplined and keep moving forward even when the day gets busy? Let's continue to explore how you can make the most of every moment and keep progressing. Now that you've learned how to honor your first promise and build a strong foundation, the next step is to maintain that momentum throughout the day. But how do you stay focused and avoid distractions? Let's dive into the next step that will help you keep progressing. It's not complicated, but it works. It works because it gives you a sense of personal power at the start of the day. You don't need motivation to start. You just need to pick something, one drawer, one corner, one item, and complete it with care. No shortcuts, no multitasking, just presence. Finish it and feel the shift. The audience on YouTube doesn't want to be entertained every second. They want value. They want something that moves them. And this kind of message moves people because it taps into something personal. It reminds them that they are in control of how they live, how they think, and how they show up, even when everything else feels overwhelming. That's the kind of content that doesn't just get watched, it gets remembered. And remembered content is what keeps people coming back. So tomorrow morning, don't scroll right away. Don't start by checking what the world wants from you. Start by choosing one thing to clean, one thing to organize, one thing to bring back to order. Do it fully. Do it intentionally. And then pay attention to how your energy changes. That's not just a clean surface. That's a signal to your brain that laziness isn't welcome here anymore. That's how you take back the day. One quiet, focused, intentional act at a time. Number 6, read one paragraph that pushes your thinking. If you're serious about destroying laziness and getting your mind in shape for the day, you've got to feed it something better than distraction. And I'm not talking about reading a whole book or trying to finish 5 chapters before breakfast. That's not the point. What I'm talking about is much simpler and more effective. One paragraph every single morning that challenges the way you think. One idea that doesn't just sound good, but makes you stop and rethink something in your life. That's the kind of discipline that sharpens your focus and builds momentum right from the start. Most people wake up and feed their brain with junk. They scroll through notifications. They check messages. They skim headlines that don't matter. They fill their head with surface-level noise before their feet even touch the ground. And then, they wonder why they can't stay focused. They wonder why they feel lazy, foggy, or behind. The problem isn't that they lack motivation. The problem is that their thinking hasn't been challenged in a long time. And when your thinking goes soft, everything else starts to fall apart. Reading one strong paragraph in the morning changes that. It gives your brain a job. It introduces a new perspective. It reminds you that you're supposed to grow, not coast. It can be from a book, an article, a quote from someone you admire. Doesn't matter where it comes from, as long as it makes you think deeper than you did yesterday. That's what pushes laziness out of the way. Because laziness starts in the mind, not the body. The body follows the mind. So if your thoughts are passive, your actions will be too. But when your thoughts get sharper, your behavior starts to rise with them. And here's the key. Don't just read it to check it off. Don't skim it just to say you did something productive. Sit with it. Let the words sink in. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? Or how does this apply to where I'm at right now? That's when the shift happens. That's when a single paragraph can hit you harder than a whole chapter. Because it's not about volume, it's about impact. One powerful sentence, if taken seriously, can shift your attitude, your choices, even your whole day. Now that you've learned how to train your mind with meaningful reading and make the most of your mornings, the next step is maintaining this momentum throughout the day. How do you stay disciplined and keep moving forward even when the day gets busy? Let's continue to explore how you can make the most of every moment and keep progressing. When you begin to live with purpose and take ownership of your actions, even the smallest details in daily life become significant, including how you prepare for an ordinary morning, even if no one's watching. If you truly want to raise your standards, sharpen your mindset, and break free from the habits that keep you stuck, there's one simple yet powerful thing that most people completely overlook: the way you get dressed in the morning, not for the camera, not for praise, not to impress anyone, but because of how deeply it shapes your state of mind. Get dressed with intention, even if it's just for yourself, because how you show up when nobody's watching, that's what determines the results. When everybody is. This isn't about fashion. It's not about designer labels or trendy outfits. It's about preparation, about how you mentally equip yourself to meet the day, not about how you hope the world will react to you. When you wake up, toss on the same wrinkled shirt you've worn for days, or stay in your pajamas until noon, and then shrug it off like it doesn't matter. What you're really doing is sending a quiet signal to your brain. Today doesn't count. Nothing important is happening. You don't need to be your best. And from there, laziness seeps in almost unnoticed. But the moment you flip that habit, the moment you stand up and decide, today I'm going to dress like someone who owns their responsibilities, everything starts to shift. Because now, your actions have structure. They carry intention. You're not just putting on clothes anymore. You're installing order into your day. You're declaring, this is how I show up when no one's around. This is the standard I hold myself to. And doing that, early, first thing in the morning, creates a ripple effect. It doesn't matter if you work remotely, if your calendar is empty, or if you won't interact with a single person. When you choose to present yourself with purpose, your thoughts begin to align. You find yourself standing taller, walking with more confidence, moving with greater clarity. You carry yourself like someone who values their time. And that energy, both mentally and physically, is more powerful than any motivational quote ever written. Most people wait for a reason to dress up, a job interview, a big meeting, a milestone event. What they don't realize is that it's the small, consistent habit of showing up for yourself every single day that builds the resilience and confidence needed for the big moments. You can't wait for pressure to arrive before deciding who you want to be. You have to become that person long before the world demands it of you. That's the real edge. That's what separates those who live intentionally from those who drift, waiting for inspiration to knock. On YouTube, the videos that truly keep people watching aren't just flashy or loud. They're the ones with a message that cuts through the noise, a message that makes the viewer pause and reflect, a message that reaches into their routine and whispers, you've been letting tiny habits write the story of a lazy version of yourself. And this habit right here seems basic, even harmless, but it holds real weight. If you can't take 5 minutes in the morning to put yourself together, how can you convince your mind that the rest of your day matters, that your goals matter, that your purpose deserves your energy? I'm not saying you have to wear a suit. That's not the point. It's about order. It's about deliberate action. It's about declaring to yourself, I'm responsible for how I show up. And that one shift in mindset, it starts to clean up other parts of your life. You begin to organize your space. You get through your tasks quicker. You pause before wasting your time. Because when you look like someone who respects their time, you start to act like it too. That connection between appearance and self-discipline is something most people never take seriously until it quietly transforms their life. So, begin with the smallest decision, because it's these little shifts that unlock an entirely new rhythm of thinking, doing, and becoming. And what's the next habit that can elevate your daily standard? Let's keep going. Would you like me to continue with the next page rewrite as well? Once you begin showing up for yourself, from how you dress to how you treat each day, you start raising the standards of your life. And then, a quiet transformation begins to take place. This is the kind of shift that doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It creeps in quietly, almost unnoticed. Someone tries it once. They get dressed with intention even though there's nowhere to go. And by midday, something feels different. They're not dragging through the hours. They're not waiting for productivity to strike by accident. They're the ones making it happen. And it all started with one simple decision, the kind most people overlook or dismiss as unimportant. That's exactly why YouTube rewards content that taps into real daily choices, the kind that, when acted upon, actually move people forward. Because audiences today aren't just seeking generic advice. They're searching for awareness. They want someone to pull back the curtain and say, hey, that tiny habit you've been brushing off, that's what's been holding you back. And yes, How you dress in the morning, even when it feels pointless, is absolutely one of those habits. When you begin to take it seriously, it stops being about style or appearance. It becomes an act of self-respect. You stop needing permission to care. You stop treating your days like they're disposable. You begin building a routine that sends a powerful message to your brain. This day matters. I'm showing up for it. And once you do that consistently, laziness has nowhere left to hide. Your standards become too high for apathy to survive. You're no longer letting fleeting emotions run your day. You're leading the day. You're the one setting the tone. And the results? They don't happen by chance. They're earned, one deliberate morning at a time. So tomorrow morning, when you wake up, don't leave it to mood swings or chance. Don't get dressed based on how tired or lazy you feel. Don't wait for an excuse to present yourself well. Be the reason. Start the day with that deep level of self-respect. Put on clothes like your actions matter. Dress like your mindset is worth protecting. Move like your goals mean something. Because once you start living that way, your energy changes, your behavior follows, and slowly, your entire life begins to reflect that same momentum. That's how you start breaking the cycle of laziness. Not with loud declarations, but with the smallest daily proof that you're no longer here to play small. You're here to lead, to own your life. And it begins with what you put on, before anything else begins. But that's only the beginning. Because as soon as your eyes open each morning, there's another silent decision waiting for you, one that determines whether you'll rise with discipline or be dragged through the day by regret. What will you choose tomorrow? When you start your day with discipline instead of emotion, you're laying down a foundation of control, not over others, but over yourself. And soon, you'll face a choice that quietly defines everything. It's not about copying someone else's routine. It's about choosing your own version of control. Maybe that means getting out of bed the first time the alarm rings. Maybe it's starting your day with a cold shower. Maybe it's planning your priorities before the world tries to hijack your focus. Whatever it looks like, what matters most is this: it's intentional. You're not just reacting to the day. You're claiming it before it claims you. That's how you reclaim your edge. That's how you stop wasting hours doing things that don't push you forward. And here's the truth. If you don't make that choice for yourself, life will make it for you. You'll get pushed around by distractions. You'll get pulled into commitments you never consciously agreed to. You'll feel tired, scattered, always behind, and you'll keep wondering, why does progress feel so far away? But it's not far. It's just hidden, buried beneath countless small moments where discipline lost, and regret crept in, and the worst part? You carry that regret with you all day, not because you lacked talent, not because you didn't have time, but because you didn't choose to use it. People don't regret working hard. They regret the time they wasted. They regret knowing they could have done more, but didn't. They regret being pulled around by comfort, and regret always shows up too late, after the opportunity has passed, after the energy is gone, after someone else has already moved. Ahead, discipline, on the other hand, feels heavy in the moment. But it lifts you. It strengthens you. It clears your path and lets you move forward without apology. And once you've tasted that feeling, the pride, the strength, the ownership, you stop negotiating with laziness. You stop giving in to weakness. Because now, you know what it feels like to be in charge. You know what it means to end the day with progress in your pocket, not just promises in your head. You see how different life becomes when you build your mornings on discipline. Not regret. This is what keeps people watching. It's what keeps them coming back. Because it speaks to something they feel every day but never say out loud. It's not sugar-coated. It's not complicated. It tells the truth clearly. When you wake up, you have one job: lead the day or get led by it. And that quiet choice, it echoes through everything you do. So tomorrow morning, when the sun rises, when the alarm rings, when excuses start whispering in your head, you'll Know what's at stake. You'll know what kind of person you're building with every choice you make. And this time, you won't let it slide. This time, you've already made the decision. Rise with discipline or be dragged by regret. And this time, you choose to rise. But if you truly want to sustain that rise, you need structure, not comfort. You need a morning routine that feels like work, not a luxury. And that's exactly what we'll explore in the next part. Now that you've made the decision to rise with discipline instead of being dragged by regret, the next step is to build a foundation strong enough to support that mindset. And it all starts with how you structure your morning. Your morning routine should not feel like a spa session. It shouldn't be relaxing, indulgent, or designed for comfort. It should demand something from you. It should make you sit up straighter, breathe deeper, move faster, and think sharper. Because that's the kind of energy you need to carry into the rest of the day. If you're serious about breaking free from laziness and building real momentum, you have to stop treating your morning like a soft landing. You have to treat it like the launching pad it's meant to be. And you know what? YouTube audiences respond to that kind of message. The raw, unfiltered truth. They stick around when the message doesn't sugarcoat things. They listen when it challenges them, not coddles them. Because deep down, everyone already knows whether their morning routine is helping them or hurting them. They can feel it. They feel it when they've wasted the first hour of the day. They feel it when they've lingered too long in bed or spent too much time scrolling, calling it self-care, when really they were just stalling. They know the difference between preparing for success and delaying responsibility. So if you want to start the day right, you treat it like it matters. You approach it as if your performance depends on it, because it absolutely does. That's why the first hour of your day cannot be random. It can't be lazy. It can't be filled with autopilot activities. That first hour is the make or break moment. The point where you either take the wheel or lose it. And when you lose it early, the rest of the day becomes an uphill battle. You fall behind. You scramble to catch up. And somehow, by mid-morning, it already feels like you're losing. You feel scattered, uninspired, out of rhythm, before you've even properly started. But everything changes when you flip the switch and say, I'm going to build a routine that demands something from me. Maybe that's waking up at the same time every single day. No excuses. Maybe it's breaking a sweat, pushing your body beyond comfort. Maybe it's sitting down, writing out goals with clarity and purpose, or reading something that challenges your thinking. Whatever it is, don't just go through the motions. Be present. Be deliberate. That's the difference between coasting and climbing. That's what sharpens your identity. That's how you build real self-respect. And no, it won't always feel good. It's not supposed to. If you're chasing comfort every morning, you'll always fall back into easy habits. But the goal isn't ease. It's clarity. It's structure. It's action. When your morning routine becomes something you don't negotiate with, when it becomes the non-negotiable baseline no matter how you feel, that's when real discipline is born. Not because someone forced it on you, but because you finally took responsibility for the kind of person you're becoming. That's the kind of content that performs best on YouTube. The kind that makes people pause and think, I've been letting myself off the hook. And it sticks. Not because people want to be scolded, but because they're tired of being stuck. They're exhausted from pretending their gentle routines are productive when deep down they know they aren't getting anywhere. What they truly crave is something that challenges them, something that demands growth, something that reminds them they're capable of more. That's exactly what a disciplined, purpose-driven morning routine does. Because once your mind is trained to handle structure from the very first hour, distractions bounce off you. Laziness shows up and finds no place to land. Procrastination tries to creep in, but it slips off because you've already proven that you don't need to wait for motivation. And that's the difference between average and excellent. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's a daily decision. Repeat it again and again to show up like your goals matter. And how do you lock that decision into place? With your morning routine. So don't build a routine that pampers your weaknesses. Build one that activates your strength. Start your day in a way that makes you proud. A way that makes you look back at noon and think, even if the rest of today falls apart, I've already won my first battle. But winning that first battle is just the beginning. The next challenge? Protecting that momentum and knowing how to rebuild it on the days you fall off track. Let's explore how to bounce back without guilt in the next part. Now that you've established a solid morning routine that challenges you instead of pampering your weaknesses, the next step is to confront your laziness head-on and make it impossible to ignore. And that begins with a question. That win, the small victory of starting your day right, matters more than you realize because it builds up. And once it starts to stack, laziness doesn't stand a chance. So stop designing routines that feel good but change nothing. Stop chasing comfort. Start creating routines that wake you up and force you into action. That's the kind of message people don't just skim past. That's the kind of message that hooks them and keeps them watching because it's not just fluff. It's not wishful thinking. It's practical. And most importantly, it works. So tomorrow morning, get up and go to work on yourself. Not in theory, not in fantasy, but with real action. No fluff, no slow, soft start. Just deliberate, consistent behavior that reminds you of who you are and who you're becoming. That's how you build a day worth living. That's how you break laziness before it even begins. And that's how you start living a life that's aligned with the discipline you've been avoiding for far too long. Now here's the hard part. Ask yourself this question every single day. If I stay lazy, where will I be 12 months from now? Most people don't like to face hard truths, especially when they hit too close to home. But if you're truly ready to destroy laziness and finally break out of that same old routine that's been dragging you down, then you've got to ask. The kind of question that makes you uncomfortable. The kind of question that hits you right in the chest, but also shows you exactly where you're heading. And here's one of the most important questions. You can ask yourself every morning, if I stay lazy, where will I be 12 months from now? You don't have to speak it aloud. You don't have to write it in a journal. But you must sit with it for a few moments and really think it through. Let it sink in. Let it hit you hard. Visualize the reality. Picture yourself waking up a year from now, still trapped in the same old habits, still postponing the same goals, still living under the same excuses. That thought should sting a little, and if it doesn't, then you're not being honest with yourself. Because deep down, you know exactly what you've been avoiding. You know exactly what you're capable of, and what you've not done. This question isn't meant to make you feel guilty. It's meant to bring you clarity. It's meant to break the illusion that you have endless time to waste. Because the truth is, you don't. Life doesn't slow down just because you keep hitting snooze. It keeps moving. And if you're not keeping up, if you're not growing, stretching yourself every day, then 12 months will pass by, and you'll look back with nothing but regret. Regret that quiet feeling, sitting heavy on your chest. The regret of not doing what you could have done. That regret will feel heavier than any early morning discipline ever would. YouTube's algorithm loves content that holds people's attention. That's what watch time is built on. And what keeps people watching isn't just a good message. It's a message that makes them reflect. Something that makes them stop and say, I needed to hear that. A video that doesn't just hand them a checklist, but holds up a mirror. This question, if I stay lazy, where will I be 12 months from now? Is that mirror. It doesn't offer comfort. It demands honesty. And that's exactly what most people are starving for. Now, picture it clearly. You have goals right now. Health, finances, relationships, career, something, and every day you delay. Every morning you let laziness win. You push those goals further and further away. One skipped day becomes a week. That week turns into a pattern. That pattern becomes a lifestyle. And before you know it, 12 months have passed, and nothing has changed except your level of frustration. Now let's flip it. What if you did the opposite? What if you decided that from this moment on, every single day you would take action, even small action? What if, instead of waiting for motivation to strike, you asked yourself this question and used it to fuel your drive? Just think about it. 1 year of consistent movement, and even if it's small, can change everything. But taking that first step is only the beginning. The real power comes in building momentum and staying consistent even when things feel difficult. So, how do you keep moving forward when distractions and doubts come knocking? Let's dive into that in the next section. Uncomfortable would put you so far ahead of where you are now that you wouldn't even recognize yourself. Now that you've made the commitment to take action and stop letting laziness control your life, the next step is making sure those actions stick, turning them into habits that no longer need permission. This isn't fantasy. This isn't hype. This is math. This is the power of compound effort. And it all starts by asking yourself the right questions before the day even begins. When you watch a video like this, when a message like this lands, it does something to your mindset. It shifts it. And that's why people don't just skip through. They stay locked in. They're not here for a lecture. They're here for a moment, a wake-up call that reminds them how serious this really is, how high the cost of staying the same really is. They appreciate when someone finally says it straight. No fluff, no tricks, just a clear reminder that you are either creating your future or delaying it. And there is no in-between. You don't need to change everything overnight. You don't need to have it all figured out. But you do need to wake up and stop pretending that inaction is harmless. It's not. Inaction is like the slow drip of water wearing down a rock. It creates a version of your life that one day you'll look back on and wonder, how did I let this happen? And once that regret sets in, there's no refund for the time you've wasted. So use it. Use that vision of 12 months from now to push you out of bed. Use it to put your phone down and do the work. Use it to remind yourself that you are not here to play small or repeat yesterday. You are here to build. You are here to grow. You are here to earn the respect of the one person that matters most, yourself. That's what makes this message different. That's why people don't skip through it, because it's not entertainment. It's instruction, it's direction, and it gives you something that stays with you long after the video ends. A voice in your head that says, if I stay lazy, I already know where I'll end up, and I refuse to let that be my story. So tomorrow, when your alarm rings and that voice of comfort starts whispering, remember the question. Remember what's really on the line, and choose action. Choose movement. Choose responsibility. Because a year from now, you'll either be proud of the small things you did every single day, or you'll be stuck in the same place, wishing you had started today. The choice is always yours. Just make sure it's a choice you can live with. If you've made it this far, you already know. Laziness isn't about your body. It's about your decisions. So how do you create those decisions that don't require permission? How do you build habits that keep you on track every day? Let's dive into how to take control of your mornings and set the tone for the rest of your day in the next section.